The truth is out there. This is the famous tagline from the television show The X-Files. We as humanity, we're always fascinated with, whether or not life is out there, out in the universe. There's something going on, but we don't know. Maybe there is life, maybe there isn't life. But one of the interesting things that we're more or less concerned about is not necessarily whether or not there's life out there, whether or not there's intelligent life out there. There's a good chance there's life out there, but is it something that's able to make conscious decisions, right? Is it something that's going to have an opinion about us? Stuff like that is kind of what we're concerned with. But now, over time, through evolution, as we, came from our humble roots, if you will, from single-cell organism to multi-cell organisms, then to a bunch of other things in between, and then mammals, and then great apes, and then even the greatest ape, which is us, Homo sapiens. Sapiens. It's actually two sapiens. I think that's the official name for modern man. But forget all the science stuff. We look at that, and through evolution and the development of the brain, we end up with who we are today, right? But the ability for an organism to gain high intelligence at a lower level is, diminishes as the organism gets smaller. The ability for a single cell organism to be intelligent, that's obviously impossible. But when you start to talk about birds and other things, at some point, there's only so much you can pack into, let's say, a brain. Not that a brain necessarily a brain of neurons anyway, is the thing that has to make the decision. But on Earth, it's definitely all about neurons doing the intelligence part of everything. So there's a lower limit in terms of at what point will intelligence develop. However, if you look at the other side, we're thinking that intelligence developed at this optimal time that when we got it, right? But the point is, we don't know the upper limits for intelligence, right? But we do know that once intelligence gets sophisticated or passes a certain level, it starts to interfere with the natural process of evolution. Why? Because the species that has that intelligence can, in fact, change their immediate environment. And that will then result in traits that are normally, or genes that are normally not beneficial for the organism, will not necessarily remove the organism from the gene pool, right? So the organism doesn't develop in a way to be optimal for the environment once intelligence kicks in, right? But then the body of the organism itself, the structure of the organism itself, to some extent, determines the kind of intelligence you're going to end up having. So that got me thinking, right? What if it turned out that we, Homo sapiens sapien, became intelligent too soon, too early? What if our intelligence came later, given our body, our overall structure, more time to be optimal for the environment, and then intelligence kicked in? Would that intelligence be a lot better then? It may be, because you can imagine, I had a discussion with a friend the other day, you can imagine, people talk about dolphins and stuff. You can have intelligence, right? But what happens if you have intelligence, but you have no manipulators, right? You can't manipulate your world because you can't. So you have all the intelligence, but you cannot express that intelligence into the real world. Essentially, if you have that, then you may not develop to be the potential thing you could be, until you run out of time and then your species dies out. Or in the case of the dolphins or the dolphins, the orcs, not orcs, the orca, I think that's what it's called. You develop, or the octopus, you develop intelligence in the water, right? So that's another problem where you're more or less stuck, that you may not be able to express the intelligence, because ultimately intelligence without being able to manipulate the world around you is more or less useless, right? So that's kind of the key. So supposing the intelligence developed later on, where the body was able to adapt more and more and more and more and more to environment, and then intelligence kicked in. So now inherently, the species can depend more on itself as an individual, and not necessarily needing a group as much, right? Because once intelligence kicks in, then we no longer are subject as much to nature, because we can manipulate nature and try to maintain a stable environment. So in that case, would that intelligence be a little bit better? It may be, because maybe the body is better. Maybe we end up having, instead of hands, we end up having tentacles like the octopus, but we live on land, and there's a lot more you can do there. Maybe our technology would have grew faster. I don't know, but that's certainly a possibility with my limited knowledge. So, but we don't know what the average, how intelligence evolves on a galactic or universal scale, right? Because we only have one sample. So one of the interesting things, it may turn out that, let's just say we were able to discover hundreds of different species out there. It may turn out that we are premature birth of intelligence. Essentially, our intelligence arrives too early than what's normal, probability-wise, in the galaxy or in the universe. We don't know that yet, but it just may very well be. So here we are thinking we are at the pinnacle of what intelligence can be, when in fact it turns out that we're the premature baby on the block, because we were born too early. Our intelligence came way too early, when most species, by the time they develop intelligence, their body has many, many, many other features that we wish we had. Just a thought. I don't know. Anyway, this is a new series, or a new thought series, that's called What If? I'll see you later.